Welcome to Module 4. In this module, we're going to look at a range of different drugs used in psychiatry. Let's start with the benzodiazepines, one of the most popular of which is lorazepam. It is used to treat a wide range of anxiety disorders, as well as being used to calm overexcited people, for instance those with mania, when it can be given intramuscularly for more rapid effects. Lorazepam acts as an agonist at the benzodiazepine receptor. This is indicated by the unfilled dark blue circle. This receptor is part of a large protein complex. It is the GABA-A receptor. And agonism at the benzodiazepine receptor indirectly or allosterically modulates in a positive manner, i.e. it enhances the actions of the endogenous neurotransmitter GABA. Lorazepam and all other benzodiazepine anxiolytics are therefore GABA-A positive allosteric modulators, or PAMs. However, recent research has discovered that there are at least 6 subtypes of the benzodiazepine receptor, and lorazepam works on 4 of these. So to improve tolerability and reduce the production of tolerance and dependence, more selective drugs have been made. One of these is zolpidem, as shown here. Zolpidem is a sleeping pill or hypnotic that was designed to work primarily on a subtype of the benzodiazepine receptor, the alpha-1 subtype. As this subtype is very highly expressed in the cortex, zolpidem has rather specifically localized impact to depress cortical activity that then leads to sleep. In this diagram, we look at an enzyme inhibitor, donepezil, one of the few treatments we have for memory impairment of Alzheimer's disease. It selectively blocks the enzyme that breaks down acetylcholine, cholinesterase. This is indicated by the filled-in orange diamond. The enzyme blockade then increases the level of acetylcholine in the brain with a positive impact on memory and also often on mood and attention. The next diagram shows carbamazepine, an anti-epilepsy drug that has been used for several decades as an adjunctive treatment in psychiatry for instability of mood and bipolar disorder. The green circle around the name tells us it's an ion channel acting agent. Carbamazepine blocks both calcium and sodium channels, as shown by the filled-in grey and black triangles. These conduct the ions that enter the cell and then lead to neuronal depolarization, so the carbamazepine block reduces brain excitability. This somehow translates into psychiatric benefit for some people, though we can't yet predict which. This diagram shows the prototypical treatment for ADHD in children and adults, methylphenidate, otherwise known as Ritalin. This is traditionally called a stimulant drug. You can see that methylphenidate is a dopamine and noradrenaline transporter blocker. But the open square shows it also has some releasing activity. These two effects increase the action of the transmitters involved in cortical function, which then improve attention and concentration. The increase in these two neurotransmitters can explain the adverse effects, particularly sleep disruption that can be minimized by using the medication only in the mornings, plus appetite suppression and sometimes anxiety. The next diagram shows another stimulant, modafinil. This is used to treat the excessive sleepiness in narcolepsy and has sometimes been used as an adjunctive treatment in depression and ADHD. You can see from the diagram that modafinil is a relatively selective dopamine reuptake blocker. But unlike cocaine and amphetamine, it doesn't produce complete blockade of the dopamine transporter, which helps to explain why it has low abuse liability. The next two diagrams show drugs that act on the opioid receptors, the brain targets for endogenous peptides such as the endorphins and the enkephalins. In this diagram, we see the well-known opioid receptor antagonist naltrexone. This blocks all 3 subtypes of these receptors, the mu, the kappa, and delta. Mu receptors mediate the rewarding effects of drugs such as heroin, as well as their analgesic effects. Kappa receptors tend to have opposite actions to the mu receptors, and their stimulation results in dysphoria and depression. Delta receptors may have a role in pain and addiction. Naltrexone has the highest affinity at the mu receptor, but in clinical doses blocks all 3 subtypes. The next diagram shows nalmefene, a newer alternative to naltrexone that has recently been licensed in Europe for drinking reduction in alcohol dependence. It has a similar range of affinities at the 3 opioid receptors as naltrexone. Also, it's a mu and delta antagonist, but at the kappa receptor you can see by the half-filled circle it's a partial agonist. This kappa activity may explain the ability of nalmefene to reduce the desire to drink or to reduce the loss of control that alcohol often produces in alcohol-dependent people. Now we see another partial agonist, varenicline. This was designed to mimic the actions of nicotine at the acetylcholine nicotinic receptor and so prevent withdrawal from nicotine when people stop smoking. The theory underpinning varenicline's development was proven, and this drug is the most efficacious treatment we currently have for quitting smoking, allowing about 30% of patients to remain abstinent. The next diagram shows another very useful partial agonist, buprenorphine. This was designed to mimic the actions of morphine at the mu opioid receptor to act as an analgesic with a better safety margin, because as a partial agonist it doesn't cause fatal respiratory depression, even in overdose. The great safety margin of buprenorphine then led it to being used in much higher doses in the treatment of opioid dependence. The partial agonist activity of buprenorphine has two major impacts. First, it provides enough mu receptor stimulation to mitigate withdrawal symptoms from heroin. And second, once buprenorphine is on the mu receptor, its very high affinity means that it prevents heroin getting to the receptor, so it acts as an antagonist. These actions of partial agonists explain why they are sometimes referred to as agonist-antagonists. So I hope you've enjoyed this brief introduction to VPM, and I hope it's shown you the power of this new visualization system to make sense of the drugs you use. To learn more, go to the VPM website, and thank you for watching.